Good evening and welcome to the May 24th Millis School Committee meeting. You're in the library at the high school. This meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. All meeting videos are also posted on the Millis Public Schools website under School Committee. All videos are also available on YouTube. All school committee minutes and agendas can be found on the school committee page of the Millis Public Schools website. Persons wishing to speak during open session must sign in before the meeting starts. Comments are not to exceed 3 minutes in time. The individuals may not name students, staff, or parents. All topics for discussion must be limited to those items listed on the event evening's agenda, and all comments must be directed to the chair. The committee may not respond to the public comment. It shall be at their discretion to discuss issues at a later date, and all times are approximate. We're going to take attendance. I am here. Mr. Conroy?
Here.
Mr. Catalano?
Here.
Ms. Gibbons? Here. Ms. Roach is not here. Our teacher rep, Ms. Copies, is here. And it doesn't look like we have any student reps tonight, and Mr. Mulaney, our superintendent. Yeah. All right. Do we have anyone signed in for open session? No, we did not. Nobody signed in. Okay. Would you like to go, Ms. Copies, and give your teacher report? As we have no student reps right now.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. So we'll start with Extended Day. They are doing their fall enrollment for K-5 Extended Day, and the forms are available on the website. The due date is June 16th, which is the day before school ends. Do not email the forms. They should be dropped off. Clyde Brown, we've got congratulations to our 5th graders for their successful Wax Museum, which happened last week on Wednesday. The Wax Museum was open for students and their families and everybody for the first time in a couple of years, and it was very nice. And I'm happy to say that I'm glad it made its way over to the Clyde Brown, because I know it started here, and I know many of us have seen our children in the Wax Museum, so it was kind of fun to hear that it made it back after COVID, as did the art show, which was also last Friday evening, so kudos to Mr. Poulos for putting that back on again. The Home and School Association has their prom this Friday for all interested people. You can check out the Home and School Association website or the Clyde Brown website for more details. That's an adult-only event. The book fair is back on the 31st to the 6th of June. They are looking for a few volunteers, so anybody at home who wants to volunteer, please reach out to Laura. You can find that information on the website as well. And the 5th grade promotion ceremony will be held also on June 16th at 1:30 p.m. It sounds like, just again, for anyone who's watching at home, Ms. Hernandez is looking for baby pictures. Please send them in, but also make sure you label them, because a lot of the babies look alike. You probably know that from looking at your own children's baby pictures. Yep. Alrighty, at the middle school, we've got some fun grade level news. We'll start with grade 8. The 8th grade math students were using motion detectors to create digital graphs, and then did distance time graphs, which is pretty exciting because they'll do a similar thing with carts up in high school physics. So that'll be some fun a couple years down the road. We are having 8th grade science MCAS, which is always delightful. And the 8th grade promotion is also on June 16th. So you can do the 5th grade in the middle of the afternoon and then come back for the 8th grade in the evening. And then I guess the high schoolers are just celebrating the day before the last day of finals that night. In grade 7, the social studies classes are learning about the European Union. And they are doing a project about life in Europe today, and they are learning about economic and political maps, including all of the countries in Europe. And so that's been kind of a big fun week. And they did that on top of doing their MCAS last week, so they're all excited to go. And the 7th graders are also creating an art 2-point perspective cityscape drawings. And if you check out the middle school newsletter, you'll actually see some images of those. They're pretty cool, especially since I don't have a creative, artistic hand in my body, so I'm always a little jealous. But they were focusing on those whole converging lines things that we all saw in all the Escher work. And then grade 6, their big announcement was they had their math MCAS last week, and they're moving on. There's been some wind blocks outside, so they're excited about that. At the high school, the April students of the month for 9th grade was Joe Zangari, 10th grade was Joyce Wesley, 11th grade was Mia Bracchio, and 12th grade was Riley Collins. And for anybody who had a chance to walk down the hallway, Riley's senior project was allergy awareness. 2 weeks ago, and so we had a really nice bulletin board out there, and it's some allergy awareness alerts every day in the announcements. The EMAS Player of the Week last week was our own Frankie Pizzarella from Fossball. She is a junior catcher who is 4 for 4 with home runs and 5 RBIs in her recent 5-2 win over Nantucket. So congratulations to her. We had the prom last Friday, and if you didn't hear much about it, that's probably a good sign, but the kids were all excited, and we had our first ever homecoming court versus prom king and queen. So that was exciting. It was a little bit of a change up there. That was out in Canton. Progress reports were also available last Friday at the high school, so the parents can access those on PowerSchool. We have class day for our seniors next Wednesday starting at 12:15, and then graduation, of course, is Thursday evening out on the football field. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for good weather. Moving past this year's graduates to our future graduates, the high school is embarking on articulating its vision for a graduate, and they're looking for some community input. So if you go to the newsletter or the website, you can find some links to give your feedback as community members as to what characteristics you want a Millis graduate to have. So that's going to help working. The survey is going to close this Friday, so please, get out there and do that. Last week, we had some field trips from the high school. So last time I was here, I reported on the middle school field trip to the State House. And last week, the junior STEAM members headed out to the Perkin-Elmer Mobile Lab. And they learned how to use the different Perkin-Elmer machines. And the students were pretty excited about that. It was a huge application in chemistry, which makes me happy. So Ms. Cheney took them on that trip. On the day before that, Mr. Cravey brought his class to the Prospect Hill Cemetery, and they've been working on a Keepers of the Earth project in philosophy class, so this was a nice way to kind of bring that together. And at the end of this week, Mr. Dave Fallon of the History Department will be taking members of the Mohawk Council on a trip to Plymouth Plantation to sort of continue on that educational pathway that was approved several years ago. On the district level, we welcome Dr. Jesus Fernandez-Gonzalez from the Council for Education for the USA and Canada to come visit our Spanish immersion program. There were some nice pictures of Bob with him there, so that was kind of fun. And they came to see our immersion program, which, of course, as you all know, is the only district in Massachusetts that's got a K-12 International Spanish Academy program. So that's what I have for tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Okay, moving on to our action items, consideration to reorganize the school committee.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Conroy.
I would nominate Steve Catalano to be chair for the next year.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Would you like to sit here now?
I might as well.
Yeah, we switch. Hey, come on over, Rob. Bring your stuff.
I didn't open the water.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't either.
Okay. That's a smooth transition. Yeah, we can work about that later.
You can be Rob.
I'm channeling my inner Rob.
Huh?
No talking, please. It's a whole new set of rules coming. Thank you for that. Oh, we now need to nominate a secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Conroy.
I would nominate Denise Gibbons to be the secretary for next year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sure. Aye.
You are the secretary. Thank you, Denise. Next action item is to approve, the consideration to approve the May 10th, 2022 school committee meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Gibbons.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the 5/10/22 school committee meeting.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Consideration to approve a reduction in facility rental fees for the Millis Pride Basketball Week, which will run from July 11th through July 15th. For those that were not at last meeting, Mohawk Pride, right? Is that the one?
Yeah, that's the boys' camp.
The boys, we had a consideration to reduce the fees, and then in fact we didn't charge any fees at all, other than their custodial fees, which are required of anyone. So that's what we did for the boys program.
And there's actually another, I think it's stapled to it. Oh, no, we haven't.
Yeah. So Pride Basketball Week.
Right, one's the week and the other's the Pride team.
So is this the same group?
No, it's the
What-
basketball team.
One is his camp, and then the other one is the AAU team that he does, which is just the Millis team. It's basically the Millis high school players. This year it's great. They've got 7th graders all the way through juniors playing. It's just one team that he does every year. Basically, they put him in 4 tournaments for an AAU season and practice.
We can group them together, or we can treat them separately. I don't, it doesn't really matter because it's a question of whether we're going to waive the fees at all. How do you want to,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Conroy?
I would move to waive the fees except for custodial for both the camp and the AAU group.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to waive the fees for the Millis Pride Basketball Week, July 11th through July 15th, and then to waive the weekly fees, it doesn't say, for May and June for the Metro West Pride Club, AAU club. They will pay for custodial fees
Right.
if required.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The next action item is to approve the Apple Year 3 lease, which is part of our rotating leases. We could do a 3-year lease and we continue to rotate. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Mr. Wiggin?
you're actually approving year 1. I missed that when I
Okay.
looked at the agenda, so my bad.
It's still on the
It's
agenda.
still a 3-year
It's fine.
lease.
Right.
Yeah, and every year you approve the first year. The only difference this year from previous years, there's a warrant article authorizing you to do this, so that piece is done. Unlike past years, this funding is now in the school budget, starting next year.
So this year, it's still on a lease, and then going forward, next year, it'll be in the operating budget?
Well, it'll still be a lease, but the funding in the past has been in
Right.
a warrant article, separate from the school budget. Moving forward, it will be in the school budget.
So this year 1 of this lease will be operating budget funding?
Right, and just again, because of the way state law works, the town has to approve this particular lease. And that's why there's still a town component as far as approval.
All leases have to be...
Contractual, yes.
Okay, so there is a motion to approve year 1 of our 3-year lease for laptops, correct? All laptops, there's nothing else on it?
I think there's some iPads in there too.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're correct. iPad, oh, no, there's a significant amount of iPads. 120 iPads, 38 laptops, for a total of $68,842.
Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Gibbons?
I make a motion to approve year 1 of the Apple lease as presented.
Second.
A motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next one, you guys have already done that.
Okay, so we
The cell thing, you don't have
we
to.
don't need to do that.
We're good
So
with
the next item is the consideration to approve the custodial and maintenance MOU with the town. As people recall, there was a discussion, there's been an ongoing discussion for several months where the school building and grounds department is going to take over the maintenance. Actually, I want to be clear, not maintenance, cleaning, only cleaning, correct? Or some
Cleaning
maintenance?
and what we would call light maintenance.
Light maintenance and cleaning
Changing light bulbs, that type of thing.
of several town buildings, but not
Correct.
all of them. This was discussed and approved at town meeting, and the Board of Selectmen just had a vote, I think, last week,
18th. Yeah, May 18th.
May 18th, on their side, and we're required to, actually, they had something on May 16th, and then we're required to vote it on our end we had already done a preliminary vote to enter into negotiations about this, so now we're at the final vote. Mr. Wigan, anything we need to know about with this?
I don't think so. I think the key thing is that part of the MOU does state very clearly that the money is in our budget, but it will also be revisited as part of the FY24 budget, so that if we see that something's a little bit off, that there will be an ability to make adjustments above the 4%. And again, that's important to understand. This money was put in above the 4%. It will become part of the future base, but there'll be one more chance to adjust that if we find out, for example, based on negotiations, for example, might be one reason that there might be a little bit of change that has to take place.
And we are also entering into negotiations with the custodial union.
Correct.
And this will obviously be a big part of the discussion because their union is going to be growing and we have to kind of work out the logistics.
Correct.
So this is a good time to have this vote to do this, and then as we sit with the groups to move ahead. Any other questions? I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Conroy.
I make a motion that we approve the MOA regarding the custodial services to be provided to town buildings between the school and the town. And it was approved by the select board, I think, last night.
May 16th.
May 16th.
A motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So Bob, you have to sign and then
Yeah.
you'll be good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Next up on the agenda is Time and Learning, a curriculum update with Ms. Maureen Knowlton. Good evening.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Nice to see you all.
Here we go.
Thanks for allowing me this opportunity to come and talk about happenings in the curriculum department this year. We have been really busy, partly making it up for some lost time due to COVID. Historically, the district has had a curriculum review cycle whereby we, on a regular basis, examine content and materials and what our needs are in each subject area. But that was disrupted a little bit over the last couple of years, so we're trying to catch up and get someone back on track. We have been assessing where we are and what our needs are. We've made some, I think, significant advances this year, thanks in part to some really timely grant opportunities that came along that assisted us. You have a very long, memo that describes in great detail. I'm going to just summarize for you tonight.
Okay.
Try to make it short and sweet. So our actions as a district sometimes are governed by changes at the state level due to the frameworks or guidance or mandates by Department of Ed. And there have been a number of updates to standards over the past couple of years. Some of those we're addressing for the first time this year. Some of them are ongoing efforts to improve in those areas. One of the webinars I attended from the Department of Ed gave us the guidance that it's a marathon, not a sprint, so we don't have to rush to make lots of changes immediately when these come out. So some of what we've been working on this year is developing a digital literacy curriculum, K-12. Jen Starr and the two technology teachers have been working really hard all year to align standards and build topics through the grades so that we have a nice framework at Clyde Brown with the STEAM classes and then rolling up into the high school with technology UA courses. They have been working on topics like safety and security, ethics and laws, interpersonal and societal impact, and computational thinking. And like I said, they've come up with a nice framework and sequence for students. Spanish teachers have been learning about the new world language frameworks that just came out, and they've shifted from more skill-based standards to focusing on language proficiency levels. The standards are categorized as communication, linguistic cultures, and lifelong learning. The teachers participated in some professional development through DESI, some webinars, and curriculum alignment labs and trainings, and they'll be redesigning their units over the next couple of years. The goal is to increase the number of students that we have obtain the seal of biliteracy. This year we had 12 students take the exam and 6 earned the seal. So, the goal is to continue to improve our Spanish language program. In 8th grade and high school history classes, they continue to refine their civics curriculums and the projects as mandated by the state. So that's an ongoing effort. And the arts teachers, from digital arts to visual arts to theater and music, they're all working on revising their lessons and units, again, based on updated standards. And those categories are creating, responding, presenting, and connecting within all of the arts curriculum areas. And then our work in ELA and math has been somewhat of an extension of work that we started a couple of years ago. I'll go into a little bit more depth about those. You're aware of the work that CFB teachers have done around the core program review. I think they are to be commended for the time and effort they spent on looking at really in-depth at programs, doing some professional development on the science of reading this year, and really getting an understanding of the shifts that are going to have to happen. Our current status is this week we are unpacking boxes and cataloging new materials and getting them out to teachers. They keep coming in to say, "Can I take my boxes yet?" Very excited to hit the ground running. We've got professional development planned over the next 3 weeks so that they'll be ready to launch those programs next year. They'll have a little bit of a head start at the end of this year. We were very fortunate that our review aligned with the Department of Ed Accelerating Literacy Grant that helped to fund most of the new materials for those programs. And our goal is to improve foundational literacy skills and develop content and knowledge-based understanding for comprehension in ELA. In the math department, the Spanish immersion, sorry. In addition to English language arts at the Clyde Brown, our shift away from Reading Street caused us to look at new Spanish curriculum as well, and that ties into the new world language standards and everything else that's happening in that area. So we reapplied this year to continue our membership in the International Spanish Academy. Stephanie already talked about the visit we had from the consul from Washington, D.C., and he wanted to visit because our program is the only one in Massachusetts that spans grades 1 through 12. The teachers in the Spanish program conducted a similar program review and selected materials that nicely aligned to the standards, and that the Spanish materials were funded mostly by the ESSER III American Rescue Grant. In math, the focus was more at the high school level. New Algebra 1 course was developed at the high school. Next year there will be a geometry course for grade 10, and the teachers have been using pretty much teacher-created materials. We recognized a need for something that was an aligned core program, and so again, Department of Ed had an opportunity under accelerating math funding for us to review some core programs. The math team selected one. They did PD on Friday to launch that program, and we're hoping that that will just, give some more substance to the high school math, 9th and 10th grade, algebra and geometry. One other major venture, I think, this year in curriculum was around our English language learner programs for English language education. This year, Millis had to complete quite an in-depth self-assessment and analysis of our program for the Department of Ed as part of the tiered focus monitoring. Next year, they will be visiting our schools in person looking at our files and our processes and our forms and interviewing teachers and families about our program. So that caused us to look in depth at what we're doing. We also have had an increase in enrollment. This year, 7 newcomers at the elementary school who came in speaking New English. So that was, their needs are fairly substantial, and we wanted to make sure that we had a solid program for students. So again, there was a opportunity through the ESSER 3 grant to get some funding for curriculum program materials and for professional development for teachers, and also a part-time teacher at Playground to help with grades K to 2, which seem to be where the most number of students are. So that was the ELE department. And then, you know, to get back on track, we're trying to develop a long-term calendar for curriculum review cycles, so that we're continuously looking and reflecting on what we're doing, looking at the impact, looking at data, and deciding. And we have a little bit of a long-range plan in mind, so we're not surprised by needs or you know, loading up in any one given school year. It's not like in the past where we could buy a textbook series and it would last us 8-10 years or so. Things are constantly changing in the curriculum world. So we have tentatively drafted out what we're doing with K-5 literacy, algebra and geometry, Spanish immersion and the world languages, visual arts, civics, the digital literacy, all of those things that have started this year. And then on the radar is to begin looking at mathematics programs, maybe towards the end of next year. So we recognize that social studies and science are also important, but there's a need to prioritize ELA right now. And there's only so much we can do in a year, and ask the teachers to do some shifting. We want to be able to plan and budget for anticipated costs to sustain the programs that we have purchased. Most of them have a digital subscription component, so it's going to be important for us to know what's coming in the years to come. Jerry and I have had that conversation. And also, I think it's not just the programs that make a difference, but the professional development for teachers. So when we purchase something new, it's important that not just at the beginning, like we're doing now, do we do some training to launch the program, but also revisit it over the next 2 or 3 years to make sure the implementation is most effective. So we want to make sure that teachers have training and coaching over time so that, you know, learning outcomes are positive. And the only thing I just want to mention at the end is the Department of Ed has distributed a curriculum survey to all districts in Massachusetts. By mid-July, we need to report what curriculum we are using, core curriculum for K-12 math, K-8 ELA, and 6-8 science. So they're asking us to report on the core programs that we're using, or if we're using teacher-created or district-created materials. And these are going to be published on the DESE website. I think after July 15th, it's going to go live. So there's been an emphasis lately on districts moving to what DESE calls high-quality curriculum materials that are researched by Ed Reports and DESE Curate. And we don't know if eventually there will be some kind of a mandate for districts to use those high-quality curriculum materials or not, but we have a nice start this year with the ELA and the math programs. That's a lot of good questions. You've got lots more detail in your...
So this is very helpful. So how long have you been in the role now? A year?
Yeah. This role?
Yes,
Yeah.
a year. So you're coming out of COVID. You're learning the role. But now the next piece, and something that we've, as you remember, as a building administrator, what can we help you with budget? And so the more you can work with Terry and identify what does an ideal budget look like on a yearly basis? What we can get by? And as the town, as you may have heard, the town is now starting to put our warrant articles into our operating budget. And this has always been a discussion as part of the capital planning is we don't spend enough money on curriculum, right? So the more that you can, as you're going through these needs assessments and redoing curriculums, start to identify what an ideal number could look like, including the training piece, because we don't want to buy a new curriculum and then not have funding to get people trained. So I know you've already started that process, but the more you can work on that, the better it would be for us so we can support you as you support the district.
Thank you. I think professional development has always been the challenge, finding the funding for that.
Is it the time or the funding or both?
I would say both, in my humble opinion, but the funding definitely.
So with certain funding, you may be able to do it outside of a normal half day or a staff development day. You could send people off or
Right.
they could do online training.
Right.
Okay.
We're looking to try and set teachers up with partner teachers in another district because we're all singletons here for the most part, especially middle and high school. So the teachers have asked for opportunities to maybe go and observe a teacher in the same role in another district and then have that teacher come and observe them so we can create some partnerships.
Yeah.
We did that with the ESL teachers this year. They participated in a monthly job alike through LSDO Collaborative, which they found really, really helpful. So if we can set up more of those kinds of opportunities for teachers too, I think they are asking for that, so I'll be looking to do that.
Anything else?
No, really helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maureen.
Very helpful.
Thanks.
And I'd just like to say, it's in the 11 months that Maureen has been in this job, she's done a fantastic job. As you said, Steve, kind of the organization, and then going out there and writing the grants that got hundreds of thousands of dollars for
Yeah.
the district.
Thank you.
And a lot of that is geared to that professional development. So, thank you.
Well, I
Yes.
think
Thank
we
you,
were lucky
Maureen.
with all those opportunities this year, and I'm hoping there will be more coming along in the future. So,
Thank you, Maureen.
Thanks
Thanks,
so much,
Maureen.
Maureen. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the chair report. It's not here, but it was a standing item, is health and safety. We had a health and safety meeting.
Yes.
Mr. Mulaney, do you have the number? I don't know if you have the numbers offhand.
Currently, we have, and this does not distinguish between staff and students, but currently in the last 7 days, we've had 8 cases at CFB, 2 in the high school and 4 in the middle school. So our numbers are relatively low. They were higher probably 3 weeks ago. Last couple of weeks, they've been coming down.
And the town side, the numbers are not, I think there was 30 in town,
30 in
which some
town.
of those people could be part of the
Yeah.
town. So the numbers are not off the charts in the town. We're kind of just cruising along, but obviously we're monitoring it.
Watching it closely.
And if something changes, we'll have another discussion, but right now we're just kind of in status quo.
Yeah, and as far as staffing goes in the buildings, there have been no issues with that. We're able to keep the buildings up and running, no problems.
How many more days until last day of school? I know you have a count.
Well, I think there's only 2 more Mondays, because next Monday's a holiday.
We're getting
So
close.
We are getting close.
Just gonna get to summer. Part of the discussion was to open up all the windows and open up all the doors and let fresh air into the building.
It's true.
Yeah.
Keep
And we
Right,
have-
it is
keep it
true.
circulating.
It
We
is
have
true.
graduation outside, which is
Right.
wonderful. We hope the weather
Yes.
cooperates, but that's worked out well for us the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Great.
And the only other thing on the chair report, obviously I just took over tonight, so I do want to do some planning and I want to have a conversation with Mr. Mulaney and Mr. Wigan about some thoughts that I have. But I'd be remiss to not at least acknowledge something horrific that occurred earlier today in Texas, where there was a school shooting where an 18-year-old high school in Uvalde, Texas, went into a elementary school and shot and killed 14 students and 1 adult right now. So part of the discussion that I was planning to have with Mr. Mulaney is that over the next year, and if not a little sooner, I want to formalize the district's threat assessment team. We've had some discussions. I think we can do it. I think it'll take some work, but that was going to be a part of my discussion with you even prior to today, but then that cements it that we need to formalize what we've been doing informally amongst the partners in town. So that will be one action item that I'd like to pursue over the next year. And so we'll wait on the rest. Next is the superintendent's report, a BCBA request for the next school year.
Correct, right. And there's a memo in your package from Ms. Urquhart, the Director of Student Support Services. We've discussed some of the new students being referred in special education services, and particularly at the preschool level. She's included in the packet a kind of a comparison between last year and this year. And although the caseload hasn't grown dramatically, it was 36 last year, 40 this year, there has been an increase in functional behavioral assessments that the current BCBA is responsible for, from 1 to 7, and those take an awful lot of time. 2 of those FBAs have an additional home component where the BCBA actually goes into the home and does observations of the child. So those are straining the resources that we have now, and that's without the addition of 4 or 5 students whose IEP meetings are pending, who may require some behavioral services once the teams are able to meet and the data is collected and the reports are submitted. So with the kind of the trend that we've been seeing over the last couple of years, we think that those additional services to properly service our students, we are going to need an additional board-certified behavior analyst. And that would be a budgeted cost of $66,870. The funding source, it could be operating budget, it could also be through choice. Mr. Wiggin is conducting his financial update for the district, and that will give us a better picture of how we would fund this this position next year.
So Bob, and I know there's a lot of numbers here, what's changing? I guess it's a 2-part question. What changed from the budget cycle to today, right? Where we already had a budget, a 2-month budget cycle. We went to town meeting, had a stated budget.
Right.
What's changed from, let's just say, February 1st when we started the budget process to May 24th, whatever today's date is, the 24th. And then additionally, what is changing in the Clyde Brown from today, the 24th, to September 1st? Let's just use September 1st as the first day of school. Is it just the addition of 4 to 5 students, or are there other needs? Help us understand why we're in the position right now to make an off-cycle, not an off-cycle request, because we're not going anywhere. We've already had to go to the town for extra money. Why? Because this is a significant cost. Why are we at this position right now?
And it's a combination of what you mentioned. We have, since February, we have had some students move into the district that weren't anticipated, and we've also had with students in the district We've seen, in some cases, an increased net level of need, and we've seen students who, in the past, the teams didn't feel like there was a level of service that they needed. Over the course of time, the collection of more data, reevaluation meetings, some of those students have now their IEPs include additional services. The largest thing is, though, kind of the new students we're getting into the preschool and kindergarten programs who are coming in from early intervention with referrals. And sometimes you can't predict, when that's going to happen, when that's going to come, because it's not our teams doing the evaluations necessarily. It could be coming from, a pediatrician or an outside agency. And, we saw that coming with the request a few weeks ago for the additional preschool teacher, because we had a cohort of students who were going to require additional services, and therefore, to keep it as an inclusion setting, we needed to have a class created that would have the right ratio of students.
So this is actually now 2 FTEs that were above and beyond.
2 FTEs and a para.
So 3 FTEs, two teachers, 1 para.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Conway.
So I can't say I'm surprised, because again, 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, whenever it was, when we had the discussion of adding the preschool, I specifically asked, how much more do we need? And we were not anticipating to need any at that point in time. So I'm not surprised that we need more. I would go back again, because I still have concerns that this still isn't enough. The last bullet point in this memo, the last sentence says, considering the unanticipated addition of students who require specialized service within the preschool program, compliance of the law is being compromised. Knowing that we have more kids coming in, knowing that a lot of these kids oftentimes have IEPs that require one-on-one with specific certified staff doing that, knowing that we staff across the district to what we can get by with, I still have concern. I mean, we have to approve this. We have to figure out how to hire it. I still question, and I still would like a little bit more done to understand exactly what else we may need. Again, knowing that in the winter we had college freshmen in these exact classrooms that we're talking about tonight, knowing that they aren't have any of the certifications from a paraprofessional or teacher level, like that's what we had getting in. So I want to make sure that we are providing all the services we're required to by staff that are qualified, and that if it means we need more, we have to start having the conversation of what we really need, not just, okay, here's what we absolutely have to have right at this moment, and hodgepodge everything else until it's a crisis.
Yeah, it is a challenge, because if we said, well, we might need a speech therapist, and then we hire a speech therapist, and the IEPs, we don't have the need, that's the fine line we walk.
But to be strategic and tactical with our budgeting, because this is about a budget. We're not telling you how to deliver the services.
Sure.
We're not telling you what you should do. I will tell you from a budget and policy standpoint, I share the concerns with Mr. Conroy that compliance of this law is being compromised, right? It's an accurate statement. We have to follow the law. It's not an option. Failure is not an option with this. So our look is at the budget piece in compliance with the law. So we have a budget and policy component. Mr. Conroy's right. We have to do this. We have to find the money. We will find the money. But I think we also need to have a more strategic conversation going forward where we had a lot of ask of the town, and they worked with us this year. But I think we're going to need to do more going forward to say, this is what our costs look like this year, above and beyond, so we can start to, so whether it's going back, and I know every year can change, but if you start going back over the years, how many students did we have, what kind of IEPs, what was the staffing, we can start to make projections. They could change, right? I suspect, based on what we've seen in society, we're not going to go to the lowest level. It's probably only going to increase. So it will help us as we start to work with the town at tri-board meetings and budgeting to make sure that we're not doing this. We have to do it piecemeal now, but to be more strategic about it and bring in and have the adequate staff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can't go out and hire 10 people, but we need to know what, like, if we should have 3 more paras that are certified in behavioral, like, that's what we need to know, because then we need to either find a way to work that in or have the discussions about getting the ones, some more of that we have that need to get that training, because, especially at Clyde Brown, we know, staffing, especially as we've gone through COVID, we've got people moving around those buildings all the time. You got people covering for this, somebody's out, you're pulling people from different rooms. If they're all not equally certified and we're putting people into rooms who don't satisfy IEPs or whatever they are, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And so, I think, again, we're not going to go out and hire 10 more people. We won't be able to do that. But I think we as a committee need a better understanding of what, again, it's going to change, but what do we need to make sure that when we're covering things, we're not dropping the ball?
We can have some conversations. That was number 2 on the list. So I was going to show you my whole agenda, but this is the conversation we've had. I mean, we've now brought the town into this conversation. They were very helpful. They worked with us. It still wasn't enough. That's not their fault. It's not even necessarily our fault. But I think the more prepared we are to have longer range conversations, the better we will be. Because then it starts to feel like we're just running around and doing this and this and this. And so, and obviously the big asterisk is always a family or 2 families or 3 families move in or 1 student moves in and they're an out-of-district placement, and it can skew it all. But I think there's some work that we can do internally to calibrate the committee with you and Terry and Neely, and then it'll help us prepare as we work with the town. You guys good? It's out of the operating budget. We don't have to do a vote on this, right? Or it's a new FTE?
We should, so,
Yeah.
we should
I'll take a
approve,
motion.
we should approve the hiring. We can determine the funding when Terry finishes a report, and we can look at choice.
Actually, typically, we approve the hiring and
Yeah.
give us the flexibility to.
I'll take a motion.
All right.
We're
Mis-
giving you an estimate of what it costs.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Conroy.
I would make a motion that we approve the hiring of an additional BCBA full-time to be funded through the operating budget and/or school choice for the fiscal 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And you'll come back with us with,
We'll report back to you.
okay, okay. Anything else on that? Is that it?
I believe that is it.
All right, anything else in your report? Are you good?
Yes, I think that's it.
Do we have any correspondence? No open session, no correspondence. We are an island amongst ourselves here. Okay, any announcements from the school committee? Nope. No old business or new business? And do we have executive session? I didn't see anything in the packet.
No, I mean, unless we want to update strategy for the Unice and the,
Why don't we wait till we have that first meeting and then we can update after that? I
Sure.
don't think there's much to update. All right, if, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Gibbons.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you on June 7th.